Welcome back, y'all. We have a short video for you, but we have some big things to talk about. Number one, Zakai Zeigler trying to get his fifth year. We got some correspondence from the government that sheds some light on what's going to happen, I think, with this situation with the fifth year for all players, but also with NIL, I think, with revenue sharing and just college sports as a whole. And I also want to talk about Tristan Keys, man. We got some major news coming from his camp that I think is going to be very, very positive for our Tennessee Volunteers. So, as always, y'all, please do us a very big favor. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. It costs you absolutely nothing, but it helps us out tremendously. So let's kick it off right here with the correspondence that came from the DOJ, just talking about ZZ's case. And I think that they sent this memo or, whatever this is to the judge in ZZ's case. And this is just the first page of it. If you need to pause it to read everything, then definitely do that. We're going to go to the second page here in just a minute. I'm not going to go through everything here, but I will just kind of summarize it. So for me, first and foremost, it feels like the whole temperature of this memo, I don't want to necessarily say bullying, but you can tell that it's kind of like a, hey, we're kind of pushing you to do what we're asking you to do. But they're just basically saying here that they want to go by the antitrust laws in this country, but it's tough to do because college sports turn into $1 billion industry off of the players not really being able to make any money, right? Like everybody else makes money and the players don't. And that's how it turned into such a really big industry. And they're saying that basically you need to look at this thing and ask yourself, do you really want to hurt this industry and take it from being $1 billion industry to maybe, a little bit less, which it would still be $1 billion industry. Just the money's getting split up with the players now instead of like, guys like Greg Sankey making seven figures or eight figures, whatever it is. I know for sure he's making seven. So, he's a daggone millionaire off of the backs of these players. Maybe some of those folks don't need to get paid as much. But for me, y'all already know where I stand at. The players definitely need to be able to make the money. And one of the arguments that they're making is about, 500,000 student athletes being able to get an education, which is big because the US, and I think Canada is the only other country that offers any sort of a scholarship to athletes. But we also understand, I'm going to go on to this next page too. But we also should understand that there are several major countries that you don't have to pay for college in those countries. So the US is also kind of, we're kind of like behind on that part of it. And, I'll let y'all kind of finish reading this, but also understanding that all the other sports outside of basketball and football, which pays for literally everything, those sports probably wouldn't be operating if it wasn't for basketball and football. So to me, I think that if you're going to make a case to say, hey, we need to, and I would never even want to try to violate federal laws, but if there ever was a case to be made, you might be able to say, well, look, maybe these rules will only go for, and I'm talking about the rules where the players can actually make money. Maybe that only goes for the sports that are generating revenue. To me, that would be fair. I could find some fairness out of that. But at the same time, I want everyone to get paid some sort of a way. And I think that, maybe they've earned it. Obviously if you're putting in work, if there's anything that's being generated as far as money goes, I think that everyone should get a piece of that pie. But that's pretty much what the DOJ is asking for the judge to do in this case is, kind of like give a pass here and let's take college sports back to what it used to be, where it was great because only the higher ups, everyone else is making money except for the people doing all the work, which of course I'm not with that by any means. So just kind of like moving forward, let me also show you this because I started to talk about how, obviously in the US, getting the scholarships, it's a great thing. But look at how much things cost in this country. Look at how much it costs to go to college in this country versus the other major countries, in this world. It's almost double. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to spend so much money, and that's why some of the students actually need scholarships. So I think that that's something that probably could be fixed. But at the same time, if you're just talking about is the education really worth it these days? So talking about a guy like ZZ, again, focusing on basketball, focusing on football. For those players to get a fifth year, one more year, looking at a guy like ZZ, he could make anywhere from $2 to $4 million in that year. Just as a point of reference, the average person that graduates with a bachelor's in this country over the course of their life working, they're going to make about $2.8 million. So that's life changing money. Like that is lifetime money that the judge might hinder ZZ and some other players from making if they don't let them get that fifth year. So obviously there will just be some more lawsuits that come from this, even though I'm feeling like ZZ, nobody's going to be able to get that fifth year. Um, which absolutely sucks. It feels like Coach Barnes and them already know it just because they've already started to bring in players on visits. We've heard more about transfer portal players. So I think that they got that message. We're seeing that Tennessee's gonna sign the college sports mafia thing where they have to they can't sue those guys and they have to go by their rules and not the state laws, not the federal laws. So it's just it feels like whenever Saban got up there with the higher ups in the government, I didn't know how this thing was going to go, but he's up there pulling strings, and this is a he's a bad person to follow because yeah, it might be okay for these first couple of years, but you're going to have to pay it back with interest in about 4 or 5 years. So either way, I just think that this is a total mess. I feel bad for those kids. I feel bad for the kids that have to come up through this. Obviously, they get to make some money, but we already know with NIL, that's something else. With that house settlement, there was a deadline for them to get the wording fixed. I think it was June the 6th. They pushed that back to June the 27th. So everyone, it feels like everyone starting to feel that pressure of man, none of this stuff is gonna. We're not gonna let anything work if it's in favor of these players. So again, I feel bad for them from that standpoint. So let's go on ahead and move on, y'all. Let's talk about some more positive news. You know what I'm saying? Let's talk about Tristan Keys. And so these are his visits that he has set up. There's 5 at this point. So he went to the U last week, and then he's going to Texas A&M on the 6th. He's going to be visiting us on the 13th, Alabama on the 17th, LSU last on the 20th. So obviously, if he's visiting this many schools, and then there's some other programs like Auburn still kind of knocking on the door. I think Ole Miss is still kind of knocking on the door. So they might get some OVs too. The fact that he's visiting all these schools lets me know that he's definitely open and that there is some competition. And he talked about all the different programs. I think for the U, he said that they've got a nice. He said that it's a nice place. I think that he likes their coaching staff. He talked about their wide receivers coach. I think that he likes how their scheme is set up. I don't remember exactly what he said about A&M, but that one's probably going to be mostly about money. And then for Tennessee, he said, man, Tennessee's been on me harder than anybody else for the longest time. Talked about being close with Faison. You got to feel good about that. And then with Alabama, he talked about Ryan Williams. He said, you saw what they did with him last year as a freshman. Of course, these players will all love to see that. They all want to kind of replicate that. Like you want to be the man on campus coming in off the rip. So I think that he sees that with Alabama. And of course, with LSU, he said one of the things that he was looking at with them is once he chose them, he wanted to see what they back off of him and they haven't. So, he said that that's why he's still sticking with them. But like I said, I feel pretty strongly that he's not going to end up there. And even if he flips somewhere, y'all, I don't think that it's all said and done until he signs. He's going to be one of those signing day people. He might flip, 2 or 3 times before signing day. So either way, y'all can see his film. We've looked at it several times. He is that dude. He's very, very good. But I also want to take a look at, something that I think should give all Tennessee fans a lot of hope. And that's that Tristan Keys, man, he just signed an NIL deal with the Three Stripes. And this was recent. I think that this just came out today. So what that tells me is he's probably going to pick a school that's sponsored by them because, as we said before, I don't know that they have any NIL contracts with college players that aren't, sponsored by them. Like that the school isn't sponsored by them. So if you go back to the list that we just looked at with his OVs, this to me would be his top 5 programs. You got the U, you got A&M. We know that they're both sponsored by him. Tennessee's on the verge of, I think, making that change. So I feel like that puts us in a really, really good spot over, I would even say LSU and Alabama. Now, he signed the contract. Could he maybe get out of it? Of course, I think that that's still possible. One of the things that I could tell you is these kids, man, they get paid and they mess up the money. They don't want to go to the program. They don't want to go to that school. They flip somewhere else. The new institution, if they're good enough, they'll pay all that stuff off. So whatever he's going to be getting paid, I don't know. I'm sure it's going to be 6 figures, might be more than that. But whatever it is, I'm sure that the school would be willing to pay it if he has to get out of that contract, let's just say. But I feel like to maybe not have to do all that, like why not just go to a school that's already sponsored by, the Three Stripes, just like he already is. So I think that Tennessee might be in a good spot from that standpoint. And as we've talked about too, with NIL, even if we don't end up landing Tristan Keys because we still have competition there, if it's about the sponsor or not. What I know is that NIL is about to go down in a very significant way. It feels like anything that's not coming from like a real company, from like a Coke, like I always say, that money, they're probably not going to let those contracts fly. So it will help Tennessee out in a major way if we are partnered with our sponsor in a way where they're going to allocate the funds to NIL. And we've said that from Jump Street. Whoever's going to dedicate the money that goes to the players' pockets, that's who you want to choose. That could give us a major leg up over several other programs. Like I think Alabama might be at the end of their contract with Nike. LSU, I'm not quite sure where they are. So but Tennessee being at a point where we're actually, working on the contract details and all that, we could say, hey, look, maybe throw a little bit of extra money in Tristan Keys NIL package so that he'll come here. You could do things like that. So I think that we've got some good leverage, and I feel good about this entire thing. Again, I think that this is going to be not to paint a bad picture of him as a person or anything like that because I don't know him, but I think that this is going to be about him and really for everybody. It should be what benefits that individual person the absolute most, not so much about any of the other rah-rah stuff that people sometimes talk about. So this one's going to be tough. I know all the way to the very, very end. He's a guy that I feel like could come in and play from day one at Tennessee. I'm not saying he's going to start because we got some studs inside of that room, but he'll give us some real depth as a true freshman. And that's really what Tennessee needs. And we need guys that can come in and play from day one because that wide receiver room is already thin. It's not going to get, it's might get a little bit better next season because we already got two guys in this class. But adding three puts us right where we need to be. So, with all that being said, y'all, please do leave your thoughts down in the comment section. That's going to be it for today. And as always, y'all, please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks. Peace. Thanks for watching, and please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel because that keeps us growing inside of the YouTube algorithm. And if you did like this video, here's another one that you might also enjoy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.